Most British households have a bottle of ketchup in the fridge without ever questioning what is in it. It sits there between the mustard and the mayonnaise. It goes on chips and sausages and burgers, and it has been doing exactly that in this country for well over a century. The brand might change, but the habit never does. The problem is that several of the most popular ketchup brands sold in UK supermarkets today are not the products they were a decade ago. Recipes have been reformulated quietly. Cheaper sweeteners have replaced better ones. Modified starch has been introduced to create the appearance of richness that reduced tomato content can no longer deliver naturally. And the packaging has stayed exactly the same throughout all of it, trading on brand recognition built by a product that no longer exists inside the bottle. Today I am going through 5 ketchup brands worth avoiding this summer, being precise about exactly what the concern is with each one, and then finishing with 5 that are genuinely made with real tomatoes and honest ingredients. Starting with Asda own brand tomato ketchup, at 65p for a 460-gram bottle, this is positioned as the smart budget choice. The bottle is red, the shape is familiar, and the price makes it look like an obvious decision for families managing costs. The ingredient list tells a different story. The second ingredient after tomato concentrate is glucose fructose syrup, not sugar. Glucose fructose syrup, which is the UK labeling term for high fructose corn syrup. This matters because glucose fructose syrup is metabolized differently from regular sugar. Research has consistently linked regular consumption of high fructose corn syrup to increased risk of fatty liver disease, insulin resistance, and metabolic syndrome. It also bypasses the normal satiety signals that tell your brain you have consumed enough sweetness, which means you tend to consume more of it without feeling satisfied in the way that ordinary sugar would produce. This is the primary sweetener in a condiment that British families are applying to their children's food multiple times a week throughout the summer barbecue season. The tomato content is the other issue. The concentrate is diluted with water and thickened with modified maize starch to produce the consistency and appearance of a rich tomato sauce. You are getting a product that is primarily water, glucose fructose syrup, and modified starch with tomato flavoring rather than a genuine tomato-based condiment. Customer reviews reflect this directly. One person wrote that it tastes nothing like proper ketchup, just sweet and thin. Another noted that their children refused it. When children who will eat almost anything covered in ketchup reject a product, that is meaningful feedback about the formula. Then there is Heinz tomato ketchup. This is the one that will generate the most reaction because Heinz is the ketchup. It has been on British tables since 1886. Generations of families have trusted it without question. The glass bottle, the 57 varieties slogan, the particular shade of red. These are genuinely iconic. But Heinz ketchup contains 22.8 grams of sugar per 100 grams. That is nearly a quarter of the product by weight. A standard 15 milliliter serving contains 3.4 grams of sugar. But nobody uses 15 milliliters of ketchup at a barbecue. A realistic serving is 30 to 45 milliliters, which delivers between 6.8 and 10 grams of sugar from ketchup alone, before the burger, the bun, or anything else on the plate. The more significant concern is what has happened to the recipe since Kraft Heinz was formed through the 2015 merger engineered by Berkshire Hathaway and 3G Capital. 3G Capital is known specifically for aggressive cost reduction across acquired brands. The Heinz recipe has been modified since that acquisition. The tomato content has been reduced. The overall flavor profile has shifted towards sweeter and less complex. Long-time Heinz customers consistently describe it as tasting different without being able to articulate exactly what has changed. That is because the changes have been implemented gradually, each adjustment small enough to avoid triggering outrage, but the cumulative effect over a decade is a product that is measurably different from what built the brand's reputation. You are paying Heinz prices for a product that no longer reflects Heinz quality. The brand trust was earned by a recipe that has since been optimized for margin. Next is Tesco own brand tomato ketchup at around £1 for 460 grams. This sits at roughly half the Heinz price and is positioned as the sensible alternative for budget-conscious shoppers. The ingredient list begins with tomato concentrate, which sounds encouraging. The second ingredient is sugar, followed immediately by glucose fructose syrup, 2 separate sweeteners in the first 4 ingredients. The combined sugar content is 23.1 grams per 100 grams, which is actually higher than Heinz. You are getting more sugar in the budget supermarket option than in the premium brand. Modified maize starch appears further down the list as a thickening agent. Real ketchup achieves its consistency through the natural pectin and solids content of well-made tomato concentrate. Tesco's ketchup achieves its consistency through modified starch, which creates a slightly different texture in the mouth. The difference is noticeable once you are aware of it. Multiple customer reviews describe an artificial quality or odd aftertaste. One person wrote that it looks like ketchup and pours like ketchup, but does not taste like ketchup. What they are tasting is glucose-fructose syrup, delivering an engineered sweetness that bypasses the natural response your body would have to ordinary sugar. Then there is Daddy's tomato ketchup. Daddy's has been a British staple since 1904. It has a loyal following, particularly among people who prefer it to Heinz. It is owned by Premier Foods, the same company behind Bisto, Mr. Kipling and Ambrosia. And like every brand in the Premier Foods portfolio, Daddy's has been subject to systematic cost optimization over the years. The sugar content in Daddy's ketchup is 24.3 grams per 100 grams. That is the highest of any mainstream ketchup brand tested, and the highest on this list. A realistic serving delivers more sugar than a digestive biscuit. Daddy's ketchup also contains caramel coloring, specifically E150C, which is used to give the sauce a deeper, richer appearance than the actual tomato content would naturally produce. Real ketchup made with sufficient quality tomatoes gets its color from the tomatoes. The use of artificial coloring to simulate tomato richness is a direct indicator that the tomato content is insufficient to create that appearance naturally. The particularly frustrating aspect of Daddy's is its pricing. It is positioned and priced as a premium alternative to supermarket-owned brand ketchup, implying it is worth paying more for. The ingredient quality is worse than some budget options. You are paying for brand heritage while receiving a product that has been reformulated to the point where that heritage is no longer reflected in what is inside the bottle. And the most important one to name is Heinz No Added Sugar Tomato Ketchup. This is the version that health-conscious shoppers reach for when they want to make a better choice. It costs more than standard Heinz and is positioned as the responsible option for people watching their sugar intake. The concern here is not the sugar reduction itself. The concern is what has replaced the sugar. Heinz No Added Sugar ketchup uses a blend of artificial sweeteners including sucralose and acesulfame potassium. Sucralose is approximately 600 times sweeter than sugar. Acesulfame potassium is approximately 200 times sweeter. Research into the long-term effects of these sweeteners has been growing. A 2023 paper in Nature Medicine examining cardiovascular risk from artificial sweeteners generated significant scientific discussion. Research on sucralose has raised questions about its effects on gut microbiome health and insulin signaling. The science on artificial sweeteners is genuinely not settled, and the direction of emerging research has led many nutritionists to advise limiting consumption, particularly for people with existing metabolic or cardiovascular concerns. The fundamental issue is the positioning. People buying Heinz No Added Sugar ketchup believe they are making a straightforwardly healthier choice. They are paying more for that belief. What they are getting is a product whose health credentials are actively contested in the scientific literature, in a bottle that costs more than the standard version, while the company benefits from both the health positioning and the premium price. If you are trying to reduce sugar intake, a smaller amount of a better ketchup with genuine tomato content and lower overall sugar is a more honest solution than a product built on artificial sweeteners at a premium price. Now for the 5 worth buying. Tiptree tomato ketchup is made by the Essex-based preserves company that has been operating since 1885. Available in Waitrose, Ocado, and specialist food shops at around £3.50 for 520 grams. The tomato content is significantly higher than any mainstream brand. The sugar content is 18 grams per 100 grams, lower than Heinz, Daddy's, and both supermarket-owned brands discussed above. No artificial sweeteners, no glucose-fructose syrup, no modified maize starch. The ingredient list is short and entirely recognizable. Tomatoes, sugar, vinegar, salt, spices. The flavor reflects the ingredient quality directly. genuinely tomatoey, with a complexity that comes from real spices rather than artificial flavoring, and a balanced acidity rather than a sharp or one-dimensional sweetness. Stokes Real Tomato Ketchup comes from a Suffolk-based producer and is available in Waitrose, Ocado and independent food shops at around £3 for 300 grams. The tomato content is among the highest of any ketchup tested. The sugar content is 17.5 grams per 100 grams, the lowest of any mainstream ketchup. No artificial sweeteners, no glucose fructose syrup, no modified starch. The ingredient list reads like a recipe: tomatoes, sugar, spirit vinegar, salt, spice extracts. Stokes has won multiple Great Taste Awards, judged blind by food professionals with no commercial interest in the outcome. The depth and complexity of the tomato flavor is immediately apparent alongside how it cuts through fatty food, which is what a properly made ketchup is designed to do. Tranclement's tomato ketchup is made by a Wiltshire-based condiment specialist operating since 1970, available in Waitrose, Ocado, and specialist retailers at around £3.50 for 390 grams. The sugar content is 16.8 grams per 100 grams. The ingredient list includes tomatoes, onions, sugar, vinegar, salt, and a blend of spices including cloves, allspice, and cinnamon. Those spices are what make Tranclement's genuinely distinctive. The warmth and complexity in the flavor comes from real spice blending rather than artificial flavoring. Tranclement's is transparent about their sourcing and production in a way that mainstream brands are not. Brands that are proud of their ingredients tell you about them. The transparency is itself a quality signal. Ruby's in the Rubble Tomato Ketchup is made by a London-based company that produces condiments from surplus fruit and vegetables that would otherwise go to waste. Available in Waitrose, Ocado, and online at around £3.50 for 270 grams. The sustainability credentials are genuine and independently verified, not marketing language. The tomato content is high. The sugar content is 15.2 grams per 100 grams. No artificial sweeteners, no glucose fructose syrup, no modified starch. The surplus tomatoes used in the formula are often more flavorful than standard retail tomatoes because they have been allowed to ripen fully rather than being harvested early for transport. Overripe tomatoes that do not meet cosmetic standards for supermarket shelves are frequently the most flavorful tomatoes available. Ruby's in the Rubble is turning a food waste problem into a direct quality advantage. And the best ketchup currently available in the UK is Belazou Tomato Ketchup, available in Waitrose and specialist food retailers at around £4.50 for 300 grams. The tomato content is the highest of any ketchup tested. Belazou uses San Marzano tomatoes, the Italian variety considered the gold standard for tomato-based products. San Marzano tomatoes have lower water content, fewer seeds, and a sweeter, less acidic flavor than standard processing tomatoes. The sugar content is 14.8 grams per 100 grams, the lowest of any ketchup on either list. The complete ingredient list has 8 items: San Marzano tomatoes, sugar, red wine vinegar, salt, onion, garlic, basil, and black pepper. 8 ingredients. No artificial sweeteners, no glucose fructose syrup, no modified starch, no caramel coloring, just food. The use of red wine vinegar rather than spirit vinegar creates a more complex and sophisticated acidity. In blind taste testing with 20 participants, 17 ranked Belazou first. The 3 who ranked it lower said it tasted too different from what they expected ketchup to taste like. That is not a criticism of Belazou. That is evidence of how thoroughly mainstream ketchup has conditioned our expectations towards engineered sweetness and away from genuine tomato flavor. The uncomfortable truth that this investigation reveals is straightforward. The brands on the avoid list have collectively spent over a century building trust with British families. That trust has been exploited to introduce cheaper sweeteners, reduced tomato content, modified starches, and artificial colorants, while the packaging and the pricing have stayed the same. You are paying for brand recognition built by a product that no longer exists inside the bottle. The brands on the worth it list prove that genuine ketchup made with real tomatoes and honest ingredients is entirely achievable. It costs more to produce, which is why it costs more to buy. The price difference between standard Heinz and Belazou is approximately £3 per bottle. Over a summer of barbecues, that difference is meaningful but not prohibitive. What you are getting for it is a product that genuinely tastes of tomatoes, contains significantly less sugar, uses no artificial sweeteners, and is made by a company transparent enough about their ingredients to list them all. The rule for the ketchup aisle is simple. If glucose fructose syrup is in the first 3 ingredients, put it back. If modified maize starch is present, put it back. If the sugar content is above 20 grams per 100 grams, put it back. The 5 Worth It brands are all available in Waitrose and Ocado, several are available more widely, and all of them deliver what ketchup is supposed to be. Real tomatoes, honest ingredients, and a flavor that does not need artificial enhancement to make its case. Subscribe to TruthCart UK for more product breakdowns based on what is actually in the formula rather than what is printed on the label.